The Financial Accounting Standards Board, FASB, is an independent private sector organization responsible for establishing and improving financial accounting and reporting standards in the United States. These standards, called ASCs, ensure the consistency, transparency, and reliability of financial information. Is US GAAP the same as the ASCs? Not exactly. US GAAP includes the accounting standards, plus interpretations and practices. In this video, I'll cover a brief history of accounting, US GAAP pre-2009, FASB accounting standards codification and hierarchy, and in the end, I'll also compare the results from using 3 different AI tools for researching accounting standards. Accounting has been used for at least 500 years, with a formal record of accounting appearing in 1494 when Luca Pacioli, an Italian monk and mathematician, first writes about the double entry bookkeeping processes used by Venetian merchants. However, history tells us that accounting was used much earlier than that. However, these records were either destroyed or the accounting methods were not documented. The first professional organizations for accountants was established in Scotland in 1854, followed by the American Association of Public Accountants, AAPA, in 1887 in the United States, and the first certified public accountant CPA exam was held in New York in 1896 in both Buffalo and New York City. The American Association of Public Accountants was superseded by the Institute of Public Accountants in 1916. In terms of accounting rules and standards, before 1929, CPAs used their professional judgment to determine appropriate accounting procedures. And it probably doesn't come as a surprise that it resulted in multiple sets of generally accepted accounting procedures. That all changed because of what happened on October 29, 1929, or Black Tuesday, when the stock market lost over $14 billion in value on a single day. To appreciate the magnitude of that amount, the equivalent value today would be a loss of $258 billion. The stock market and the economy would not recover for over a decade. And some of the reasons for the collapse were the lack of regulation of publicly traded companies. President Roosevelt thought to solve that problem with the signing of the 1933 Securities Act, also known as the Truth in Securities Act, which regulates the sale and offer of securities. The subsequent Securities Exchange Act of 1934 governs the secondary trading of securities and was created to ensure greater financial transparency, accuracy, and less fraud or manipulation in securities transactions. The act also authorized the formation of the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. The Institute of Public Accountants was superseded in 1957 by the American Institute of Public Accountants, AICPA, that we know today. Just 2 years later, in 1959, the AICPA created the APB, or American Principles Board, and this organization issued pronouncement on accounting principles until 1973, when it was replaced by the FASB, or the Financial Accounting Standards Board. The primary reason was that a fully independent, smaller organization would be in a better position to create accounting standards. The SEC designated the FASB as the organization responsible for setting accounting standards for public companies in the United States. Globalization of companies has made the need for standard accounting procedures even more important. And in 1973, the International Accounting Standards Committee was established by accountancy bodies of 10 countries, with the main objective to develop a single set of high-quality, understandable, and enforceable global accounting standards. That makes sense, right? How can you compare the financial statements of competing companies in various countries when all countries use different accounting standards? The International Accounting Standards Board superseded the IASC in 2001, and its accounting standards, called IFRS, are either required, permitted, or partially permitted by most countries, aside from the United States. The FASB in the US has been working on a convergence project with the IASB, but there are key differences that stand in the way of full convergence. Mainly that the US GAAP is rule-based with specific regulations for every contingency, whereas IFRS is more principle-based. So, for instance, if we applied this to traffic laws under the rule-based system, speed limits are posted and one must stop at the traffic light or stop sign even if there is no other traffic. Under the principle-based system, it's based on the judgment of the driver. For instance, drive at a speed that is safe given the road weather and traffic conditions, yield to others when it's reasonable and safe to do so, prioritizing pedestrian safety. I think under the rule-based system, it's easy to say I adhere to the rules, whereas under the principle-based system, the person has to justify that they adhere to the principles. With that, let's now discuss what US GAAP includes by looking at what is often referred to as the House of GAAP. Before the FASB Accounting Standards Codification was introduced in 2004, accounting standards lacked a consistent and logical structure, and the historical House of GAAP depiction shows us the 4 levels of GAAP that existed before the codification, with the least authoritative GAAP on the bottom and the most authoritative GAAP on the top of the graph. The most authoritative GAAP includes the FASB standards and interpretations, APB opinions, and the AICPA CAPS accounting research bulletins. Less authoritative are the FASB technical bulletins, AICPA industry audit and accounting guides, and the AICPA statements of position, followed by the FASB Emerging Issues Task Force and the AICPA Accounting Standards Exec Committee Practice Bulletins. Less authoritative are the AICPA Accounting Interpretations, the FASB Implementation Guides, and widely recognized and prevalent industry practices. The US GAAP, as shown here, were difficult to interpret, and the complexity of the standards made it hard for users to stay up to date. Problems with the old standards increased financial reporting risk and led to inefficiencies that increased cost. And the FASB responded by launching a new project to codify the standards, essentially combine all authoritative GAAP in one place in the accounting standards codification. The project was approved in September 2004 by the trustees of the Financial Accounting Foundation and became effective for fiscal years ending after September 15, 2009. The FASB ASCs are published online at asc.fasb.org, and use of the site is via a free basic view or a professional view that includes additional features but comes at a price. As a registered CPA candidate, you're eligible for a 6-month free professional view. There's also free access for academia. And the professional view can be shared. That might be an option, but only one person can log on at a time. Or the price per access gets cheaper if you buy the professional subscription in bulk. In terms of the content, the FASB codification is organized in 9 subject areas, followed by the master glossary. The 9 subject areas are 100 principles, 200 presentation, 300 assets, 400 liabilities, 500 equities, 600 revenue, 700 expenses, 800 broad transactions for those topics that cover multiple areas such as business combinations, consolidations, leases, and foreign currency matters. And then subject areas 900 industry for industry-specific topics such as agriculture and airlines. Above is the search box that you use if you know the specific ASC numerical reference number. You can browse the subject areas or consult the master glossary for term definitions. It's basically a master dictionary. The other sources icon links to other resources such as accounting standards updates issued since 2009, proposed accounting standards updates, exposure documents, pre-codification standards, concept statements, and maintenance updates. Depending on your FASB access, you may have additional resources at the top of the page, such as advanced keyword search, cross, or join options. We talked about the 9 subject areas of the FASB codification, but there are over 90 topics, a subset of the subject areas with a 3-digit code like 105. And then subtopics with either a 2 or 3-digit number, and sections with a 2-digit number. For example, if you want to research the initial measurement of receivables, we start by browsing the topic assets, unless you already know the specific section of the FASB, and enter the number into the search box. You might even want to start with a specific Google search and find the ASC reference like that. However, for browsing the topic and perhaps expanding your reading to other sections, go first to Assets section 300, since receivables are assets. One of the topics within Assets is 310 receivables, and the subtopic 10 overall contains the section 30 for initial measurement. I use ChatGPT, Copilot, and Storm by Harvard University by asking, provide expert advice on the initial measurement of receivables and the related FASB guidance. Now, here's a short editorial. I've used AI tools a lot over the past 2 years, and so far the results have been mixed. Sometimes it's fantastic, and other times the information is wrong. I'm sure it will improve, but it's best to know something about the topic to be able to spot when results are incorrect. To assess each AI tool, I use the rating system. 1, accuracy, 2, comprehensiveness, 3, easy to understand, and 4, references to FASB and other sources. On this slide and the next, I have the ChatGPT results. I did not post the details for all results because it was quite lengthy. So what stood out to me? I like the key guidance section that states that receivables are initially measured at their transaction price or fair value, depending on the nature of the receivable and the circumstances of its recognition. Short and to the point, but it didn't reference ASC 310. Then in the next 2 sections, it provides more details about when the transaction price is used and when to use the fair value. I like that it referenced additional ASC guidance such as ASC 606 and ASC 820. Each section also had practical insights. In addition to what I had requested, ChatGPT also provided a section for adjustments to the initial measurement and the ASC references. A section on the subsequent impact of the initial measurement decisions, as well as related FASB guidance, disclosure requirements, and recommendations for best practices. It did not provide footnotes or references to the resources used. I scored the ChatGPT results as a 5 for accuracy, 4 for comprehensiveness, and 5 for easy to understand. 3 for extras because the footnotes and references were missing, but a lot of other additional information such as practical insights, adjustments, disclosures, and recommendations were provided. Of course, the rating is subjective, and you might have your own thoughts on that. Overall, a score of 17 out of 20. Let's now look at the Copilot results. There was a summary at the top, but it did not actually tell me that receivables are measured at the transaction price or fair value, depending on the type of transaction, but it did reference ASC 310. I found the next section a little confusing, but okay. It did mention the different levels of measuring receivables. And in the next section, it provided references to ASU 2010, 20, and the specific FASB section for the measurement of receivables. I did not think that this was an adequate answer to a request for expert advice. It did not seem comprehensive enough. I scored the Copilot results as a 5 for accuracy, 2 for comprehensiveness, and 4 for easy to understand, 2 for extras because the footnotes and references were missing, but it did specifically identify the FASB reference for an overall score of 13 out of 20. The STORM query from Harvard University only allowed a 20-word query, which I feel is a bit limiting. However, the results were impressive. First, while you wait for the response, you can see the sites that are being queried scrolling by. I thought that was interesting. The response was very comprehensive, with the first 3 pages showing the initial measurement, measurement attributes, assessment of credit risk, recognition of receivables, and disclosure requirements. And each section has footnotes to the resources used. I felt the summary wasn't as easy to understand, but I liked that it provided examples and also referenced disclosure requirements. On this page, STORM provided specific information about the FASB guidance, which referenced the ASC 310 and additional sections. STORM continued with even more information about receivables, such as monitoring and minimizing accounts receivable, and practical considerations and common challenges and best practices. I like that I was able to generate a PDF that also includes references. I scored the STORM result as a 5 for accuracy, 5 for comprehensiveness, 4 for easy to understand, and 5 for extras, for a total score of 19 out of 20. I want to add, though, that I felt the STORM query result was a little too comprehensive. In terms of being easy to read and understand, with some missing parts such as references and footnotes, I like the ChatGPT result better. I also want to point out, though, that I ran the queries on each AI tool twice and received different responses both times, which is also a little confusing. Hope you enjoyed this overview of FASB, the ASCs, and the use of AI tools for researching accounting standards. Let me know what you think about using AI for researching accounting standards.